Good afternoon. This is Media Center, Ukraine, Odesa. We continue for today. And our current topic is provision of social services in Odesa region during the war. Our speaker is Svitlana Nazarenko, Deputy Director of the Department of Social and Family Policy, Odesa Regional Military Administration. Svitlana, the floor is yours. I would like to welcome everyone. The system of providing social services in Ukraine is regulated by the law of Ukraine on social services that defines the conditions for the functioning and the range of regulatory acts regulating the specifics of the social protection and provision of social services to different categories of citizens, including the acts of Cabinet of Ministers of Ukraine and also orders of other central bodies. Social services are necessary for all residents of the community because their timely provision contributes to the prevention of problematic situations. To ensure the provision of basic social services to individuals, families, and territorial communities, a network of social service providers of the state, communal sector, and social service providers of the non-state sector has been created. As of now, 121 social services providers provide social services in territorial communities of the region, including 14 territorial social service centers, 40 centers providing social services, 24 other subject providers of social services, 16 territorial communities which concluded a contract for receiving social services with territorial centers for the provision of social services and centers for the provision of social services, 8 city, village, and settlement centers on social services, 8 communal institutions and institutions providing social services founded by territorial communities, and 11 boarding houses. Since the beginning of the year, 37.5 thousand of social services have been provided, including the social adaptation, integration, reintegration, the crisis intervention, and the social accompanying of families. 43.8 thousand of persons got social services, inpatient, outpatient care, and natural services in the territorial centers of social support. In the departments and units of territorial communities pay compensation to physical entities for providing social services. For 6 months of 2023, almost 2.5 thousand persons received compensation to more than 22,000 of hryvnias at the expense of budget of territorial communities. Today, the Ministry of Social Policy is working on creating sustainability centers, friendly, barrier-free spaces that will provide social services, including information, counseling, and social psychological support. It is expected that the activities of such centers will contribute to strengthening the psychosocial stability of the population of the community and the coordination of volunteer activities. Such sustainability centers are a priority in the all-Ukrainian program for mental health initiated by the First Lady, Olena Zelenska. What are the advantages for the communities in these sustainability centers? Creating the single window to provide social services, including informing, consulting, and social psychological assistance. They decrease the initial level of stress and anxiety among people. This will also include trainings, for example, crisis management response trainings for teachers, workers of self-government bodies, etc. The strengthening of social capacity of the community, including integration and adaptation of veterans and IDP, and also the strengthening of volunteer movement. In all over Ukraine, the veteran hubs have been created to support veterans and their families. The coordination centers to support civilians are also under development to solve the issues of social protection, including accommodation, employment, and psychosocial, legal, and other types of support. Such centers are the tool of cooperation between territorial communities, central bodies, and international organizations. They coordinate different types of assistance provided to IDPs, veterans, and other categories of citizens suffering the Russian aggression. Odesa region has the following tasks now with regard to development of social services on the regional level. This is the establishment of centers providing social services to families with children with disabilities, mental disabilities, and psychological issues, and also the reforming of boarding schools. Establishment of dormitories for youth, orphans, boarding houses, the creation of centers providing social services for people with disabilities and elderly people suffering from mental disorders, etc. The development of centers for complex services for adults and children with disabilities, with mental disorders, and the provision of social services, including early intervention, for timely provision of help to Ukraine to decrease the level of disabilities in the future without limiting the persons to whom services are provided. The support of people with mental disorders residing in families, psychological support, social and labor adaptation, and organization of daily activities, temporary rest for parents or persons who replace them, who take care of children with disabilities and need permanent external care for the period of absence of parents or persons who replace them, supported accommodation for persons with disabilities with mental illnesses with high level of adaptation and autonomous activities to create social and other conditions for their independent accommodation with the involvement of community. For labor rehabilitation, it is needed to create labor workshops in the centers for mastering the simplest professions that do not require qualifications. The funding of restoration and the purchase of computer and other equipment is possible at the expense of international donors. In our region, we have the program to provide social services to community, which is implemented by the Ukrainian Fund of Social Investments. We have 5 micro projects in Oblast. We would like to invite everyone to participate in this process, to develop projects, to get grants when it comes to provision of social services. The system of social services in Ukraine is constantly being updated and modernized in accordance with the new needs of citizens and modern global approaches to the provision of social services. Thank you for your attention. Thank you too. Thank you, Svitlana. Thank you for being with us today, and we hope to have an opportunity to invite you again today. That was the last briefing in Media Center Ukraine, Odesa for today. Please follow our announcements and stay tuned.